such an important question on how they build resilience in life in general, but also with learning, like academic resilience. There's so many factors that interact with that. So please feel free to ask questions as we go along. It's a nice small group of us today. So I'm also interested to hear your feedback on any approaches and strategies that you've tried and that you found helpful for your children too. So as well as looking at resilience, we're going to think about anxiety, because this is something that we've seen a huge increase in during COVID and does impact children's ability to bounce back from adversity. And we'll look at the steps to support and some tools, and then at the end we've got questions which everybody that's signed up, there's some people that have streaming online, and you guys submitted any questions that you have, so we'll go through those at the end. So resilience, what is resilience? Any ideas on what it means to you?
Not giving up.
Not giving up, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, being able to press on even if it gets really hard, but you still carry on.
Yeah, pressing on when things get tough, absolutely.
Keep positive,
yeah.
Even if you have to face challenges.
That's right. Yeah, keeping positive, a positive mindset. And that's it. Resilience is very much about how children, young people and adults respond to adversity. So you could have an adverse event. It might be something very small, like a challenge in learning, or very big, like the loss of a loved one. But the same two people will respond in different ways to the same event. And so what we need to think about and unpick is why do some children have more resilience and are able to cope with life's bigger challenges or smaller challenges, and other children need more support on how to do this. So do we feel that resilience is something we're born with or we develop? Yeah, so that's generally with most things.
Around it might create it.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. So you'll have people that have certain genetic factors that might help or hinder, but the environment plays an influential part. And what we know and understand is that resilience is a skill that can be developed. It is something that can increase over time in the right environment. So this was a great finding for us to know, because it enables us to support children and young people as well. And it's, if we think of a child in a big circle and lots of other interacting factors, family, school, relationships, friendships, learning, all these things impact resilience as well. So when we're thinking about resilience, it links very much to emotions and the way we feel and the way we think, and children pick up on the feelings of the adults around them. That's one thing we know. So when we're having a bad day, usually the kids are having a bad day as well, and they're like little scientists, they explore the world around them. So we know that anxiety is normal, we all experience it, and it can help us, it can give us adrenaline that we need to perform, but sometimes there are times when it becomes unhealthy if it's becoming a barrier to our learning or to our lives. So we do surveys with the children. The KHDA send one out for the children, and we also do our own in school, which we've been monitoring over time to look at, okay, how has COVID impacted children, with their learning, but also with their emotional and social development. We know it's had the biggest impact on their emotional social development, actually. Learning, they can get back into pretty quickly, but it was the social aspects with the restrictions and all the things that they were exposed to on the media, being at home, away from school, that had the biggest impact. And what our children tell us on the surveys is that 30% of them around would like more opportunities to talk about their feelings, and quite a large proportion, around 32-33%, said they don't know what to do if they're feeling worried, that they're not actually sure what tools they can use or how they can cope with that. So that's one thing that has been a focus for us as a school, and we've put lots of initiatives in place to encourage children to talk about their feelings. So I think that's one thing that they really missed, especially when they were distanced from their friends, because they would often talk to their friends about their feelings, and when they didn't have that playtime and the opportunities to do that, that really did impact them. So how do we recognise anxiety? So these are some of the symptoms that we'll see in children when they're feeling anxious. You'll see that their head feels fuzzy and their heart's beating fast. They may ask to go to the toilet a lot, crying, tummy ache, avoiding things, and also disturbed sleep, and also trying to be in control of things, which is what we do when we feel really anxious. Usually when we're very anxious, it's because we feel out of control. So we try and take the control back. Is there anything on there that isn't there that you see in your children when they're anxious? Yeah. That pretty much covers it, yeah. But these things are really important for children to know themselves, because the first stage for them to self-regulate is to be able to recognise how they're feeling. Hello, welcome. Okay. So for them to know, okay, when my heart starts to beat faster, or when I get tummy ache, or when I need the toilet, that means I'm feeling anxious. Just to be able to recognise that is a really important skill for them. So, going on to our top tips. So this one, be the calm you want to see in your child. As I touched upon in the beginning, children take on the emotions and the feelings of the adults around them, and that's how they learn. So it's paramount that we look after ourselves, and we're in a state of calm when children are very distressed, which is really hard to do. We can't be calm all the time, we're human beings, but it's just to be mindful when we're in those moments where we feel out of control ourselves. Okay, take a step back and respond when I'm feeling calmer, otherwise the situation won't de-escalate, and then children struggle to learn how to manage emotions themselves. So this is always tip number one with our children, is we have to look after ourselves first. We have to feel well. We have to be able to be in a state of calm when things are going wrong, and even when that's not possible, then we need to know when we have to reach out for support, which is really important. 80% of our communication is non-verbal. So what we see a lot, and this was even true within the period of Corona and online learning, is we try and hide things from children. You know, we don't want to expose them to things that we feel will upset them or impact them, but they pick up on it anyway, because they can see when we're upset and they can see when we're distressed, even when we're trying to mask those behaviours. So thinking about what it is that you do to look after yourself during stressful times, because that's what the behaviour we're going to be modelling to our children as well. And tip number 2 is helping them to build relationships with others. So this categorically in the research forgot about that. Research around building resilience. This comes up pretty much top after looking after ourselves is helping them to build relationships with others. What is a big buffer against adversity is our social network and our connections to others. So for children, that's both in friendships, they're adults in school, they're adults at home. This is going to be the most influential thing that will help them to build resilience in times of adversity. So that's really important. And this is why we saw within our data, our wellbeing data for children, the dip during COVID of that social aspect, the thing that's so important for them to feel good and also engage with the learning, because you have to feel good to be able to learn. We did see the impact there within those relationships. They just so much wanted opportunities to spend with the friends and just play as they would have been able to do before. So the tip number 3 is helping them to understand and manage their emotions. So this is really, really interlinked with resilience. How we're feeling and how we're able to manage the way we're feeling is really paramount to being able to deal with life's challenges. So with children, the first thing to do is to help them recognize their emotions. And this goes right from nursery to secondary school. I know some secondary school students are still learning that skill of being able to manage the way they're feeling. So this is a strategy that's well researched and used throughout the UK called emotion coaching, and it's a technique that helps children to self-regulate, but in a healthy way, because when children feel angry, what can happen a lot is they can attach shame to that emotion of anger because of the way we respond to anger, because the behaviour when children are angry is not what we want to see. So this is a way of responding where it doesn't send a message of shame, because all emotions are completely acceptable, all emotions are normal. Not all behaviour is okay, but all emotions are okay, and that's really what this approach is about. So very first step, just being aware of the emotions that your children are feeling, using the emotions to connect. So when you see that they're feeling, it could be angry, it could be nervous, it could be happy, it could be excited, but just labeling that, because that's how they understand the way they're feeling, is when we help give labels to those emotions. And then communicate empathy and understanding. So when they are the most stressed, it might be that, you know, somebody doesn't want to play with them, or somebody's stolen their toy. Older students doing exams, so many different things that they have to contend with, is to say, you know, I would feel a similar way to you if I had this situation. However, this is how we can deal with it, and then you set limits. So where the behaviour isn't what you want to see, or the behaviour is inappropriate, we go through the step of validating the emotion first, always, and then correct the behaviour. What we do is we try and correct the behaviour first, but when they're feeling anxious and stressed, it's just so validate and then look for specific corrections in behaviour. And this will ensure that our children are emotionally resilient going forward into the future as well. And step 4, help them to build independence, which is a really tricky one. I find we often want to protect our children from life's adversities, which is completely normal. It's our instinct. But in order for children to build resilience, they need to experience adversity. And if they don't, they're not developing that skill. So it's helping them to make independent choices, obviously developmentally appropriate. But what are some of the things that you do with your children to help them build independence? Do you have any examples? It could be something very small, like they have a responsibility in the home.
Yes.
Yeah?
Big garbage, for example.
Yeah.
Dishes.
Exactly.
Just stay alone for some time as well.
Yeah. Yeah, these things are really important. They have a responsibility, they know it's theirs. Even some packing the bag in the morning, having that list, and doing it themselves and carrying it themselves. Like, these are all the first steps to developing that independence, and how you want to do it is what feels right and comfortable for you as a family. But this is one of the ways they build resilience, because otherwise they're always dependent on everybody else making decisions for them. And so this is one thing we promote right from early years, is independence for children particularly.
To make mistakes as well.
Yeah, that's really important. That's actually one of the biggest interacting factors of building resilience, because they need to take a risk in order to fail. And what we find children, especially if they're struggling with their self-esteem and confidence, they sit in their zone of safety and they're capable of more than they're achieving, but they're just scared to fail, which is very, very common. And I think also the way the education system in general all over the world is designed, and the social element of other students seeing them face difficulties, all these things do have that impact. But the more they feel comfortable in taking a risk, the more they will build their resilience and also excel in what they're doing. So speaking of that, that's the fifth tip, is supporting them to take risks. Really, really important. Obviously developmentally appropriate to what they're able to do. But we do, we see a lot that we try and protect them, don't climb on this, it's dangerous, and don't do this. But actually that's how they learn. When they fall, they need to get back up and carry on. That's how they're building the resilience. So there is a really good approach called the growth mindset, which we use in school because we have a positive education curriculum. So it really supports all these things on character development and building resilience and growth mindset. So this is about how children can take risks and know that failure is something really important for learning, and failure is how they learn, because if they're not failing, then the likeliness is they're just sitting in their comfort zone and they're not stretching themselves. So the sixth tip is gratitude. Does anybody practice gratitude, or? Yeah? Yeah, and it's getting into the habit of it, sometimes, especially when life is most challenging, is when we need gratitude the most. And one of our colleagues was doing a daily gratitude for 12 months, just to see the impact, and then it becomes a habit, it becomes natural, it becomes to see what we can be grateful for. Even just the smallest things sometimes actually makes a big difference. So this is helpful for children, particularly who are anxious or worried about coming into school, which we have seen an increase in that with COVID. And we say, right, okay, in the morning, name 3 positive things, or 3 things you're grateful for today, just to get them into that mindset of school being a good, safe place for them. So this is something that is very well researched, the impacts of gratitude on our resilience and our coping mechanisms to deal with challenges. And very easy to do, really. So just as a summary, these are the top tips in the research for how we can support resilience in our children. Looking after ourselves, knowing when we need help ourselves, because everybody needs help, and there's absolutely no shame in that. So it's knowing if we need extra support, that we have those people to reach out to, help them to build relationships with others, help them to understand that their worries are normal and how to cope with their emotions and understand them, build their independence, encourage them to take on challenges, and practice gratitude. Does anyone have any questions? No? If we go through the questions they submitted, we can maybe answer them together. So, could you tell us more about social intelligence versus emotional intelligence? And think of what the difference might be.
I think social intelligence maybe And emotional, it's something about yourself and how do you feel, your own, like you're happy.
Yeah, absolutely.
How do
That's
you
it.
react toward their actions, like that's
Yeah.
happening on the social?
Mhm, mhm.
I think we need it also, not only kids.
Absolutely, it's really more for adults. Yeah, I mean, we all experience something very significant, you know. Yeah, absolutely. I think you've summed it up very nicely. Social intelligence is about our ability to build and maintain relationships, and emotional intelligence is our ability to understand the way we feel and understand the way other people feel as well.
I see this with my daughter in her previous school.
Yeah.
And this is was also the reason that I should
Okay.
because they have like a kind of bullying, and she started to really affect her confidence badly. Like something I couldn't always control it. Even myself, I didn't know how to work with it. Like she started to change, her attitude to change. She don't feel that confident anymore. But it's something like also something you cannot control it
Yeah.
by yourself. Because it doesn't happen with one child. It can happen more and more. Every
Yeah.
day.
Yeah.
If you give lectures to them. So
And this is difficult because it's certain type of characters, isn't it, that get targeted sometimes of being very sensitive, very kind and caring, and if we think about the need for social relationships and how much that impacts the way they're feeling and the resilience, then it's such a difficult situation when that happens. Is it better for her now? Is she better now?
yeah, she's actually when I moved to school, she's more happier. Although, like I believe, like changing school is not a solution.
No, yeah.
Also, I did my first.
Yeah.
School, I need to change the rules or the way that I couldn't control it.
I mean, you found a solution that was right for you guys at that time, and it's paid off, you know. And from her experiences, you know, hopefully she's able to build on that. And I think the fact that you were aware of it and you noticed it, and she was able to come and talk to you is really important. Because that's the main thing, that our children are able to speak to us and be honest about the way they're feeling. My child has a fear of being wrong. How do I overcome this fear for him? Any ideas?
Giving examples of real life people that
Yeah.
you know they models, role models like I don't know Albert Einstein.
Yeah.
They're not always right.
Uh-huh.
So I think they learn a lot from examples.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And this is growth mindset that I was talking to you about earlier. We do this in school. We share examples of people like Michael Jordan, Harry Potter, like J.K. Rowling, I think. 9 or 10 times she was trying to get it published, probably more. And so just really demonstrating how many times these really, really successful people failed and kept going. And it wasn't just about some innate intelligence they had, it was about the effort and persistence of not giving up and the perseverance. So yeah, sharing examples of people that are role models to them. So it could be a family member that they really respect and admire, or a friend, or you know, a superhero.
Or you've done something wrong, because that's the point of admit when we're wrong. They figure my mom is never wrong, so I'm not allowed to be wrong.
Absolutely. That's really important, and we also try and encourage teachers to do this as well, because we try and conceal our mistakes a lot, and children pick up on that. So they're, okay, it's not okay to show that we've made a mistake, maybe we shouldn't do that. But when we model, like we'll say, oh no, look, I spelled this wrong, that's okay. But we model making those mistakes, it creates that environment of safety for them to know that they're okay to make mistakes as well. So that's a really important one. When we model our own, it just enables them to feel that it's okay.
I also want to add on one that feel or
wrong.
Yeah.
You feel the fear of being wrong. The kid also hesitate to do many things. Or I may fail or I may do wrong. So I think parents must give them confidence all the time. Whatever you do, it will be right. Don't feel that it will be wrong and don't hesitate to do it. I think we have to build a confidence of you will be wrong. You may be wrong, but you will do correct us.
Yeah.
So better not to fear and just keep on doing and it will work out.
Exactly.
So first of all, you have to tell that don't get afraid and keep on doing it. You will not fail. So if you will not fail only helps them to encourage to do the things, I think. Not to fear and keep on doing. So it gets built up and then they become confident also.
Yeah, absolutely.
Sorry to interrupt, I have a meeting at 8:30.
Okay.
I planned my day today.
Okay.
It was very useful.
Oh no, thank you very much for coming and thank you for your contributions. It was really helpful. But yeah, with failure or encouraging students to do things, I see them around exam times. They're so anxious, even assessments in primary, they're so anxious, but the motto is you just do your best. That's all we can expect, so do the best you can. But there's a lot of things that impact the way children feel about their learning, and tests themselves, the way they're designed, increases that anxiety because it is putting children in a box and giving them a number which attributes a value, and so all these things feed into it, which causes them to, if they make comparisons to their friends a lot, and this is one of the things we find when children are feeling less confident, they're making comparisons to other people rather than to themselves. Okay, this one we've answered. How to manage stress at the parents' end? Important question. How do we do that? Is there anything that you guys do that really helps?
Yoga.
Yoga? Yeah.
Exercise. Outdoors.
Sleep, yeah. It's those basics, isn't it? Exercise, sleep, getting the right nutrition. But also knowing that you're doing the best you can, in the same way that you encourage your children to just do their best, and it's okay to get things wrong. Being compassionate with yourselves in the same way is important, because we don't always get things right, but we learn. How to create more interesting reading for kids? Any ideas?
From early age only, we should provide them the reading material which is interesting and catchy. Instead of text, we should give them the more colorful and pictureful books.
Yeah, interesting books for them, especially the younger children.
Yes.
They really enjoy pictures. Yeah.
And some good stories which makes them more interested reading the things.
Yeah, absolutely. I think one thing we find is just to connect it to something they're interested in. That's the only way to engage them, their interests.
I just listen and whatever he's asking me, I'm buying.
Yeah, that's the best way.
Say to me what.
Yeah, because they're gaining the same skill. It's just a skill set they're gaining, so if we can follow their interest with it, and it doesn't just have to be a book. Like there's comic strips, there's things that are more child friendly sometimes than just sitting down with a book, if that's not something they're naturally sort of pulled towards. Some children love reading and they don't have a problem engaging with it, but other children, it's not necessarily their thing that they enjoy, so trying to make it as interesting as possible is important. And I'm not really sure what this one means, so maybe you can help me. How to manage the expectations of the kids. I'm wondering if it means when children want things that they can't have, or no, we'll move on. How to make my child confident and outgoing or speak up in a crowd. Okay. Go on.
The 7th point you said that how to manage expectations
Yeah.
of kids. I think the expectation means
they may see they don't have toy which their friends have, or many things which their other friends are having. So I think we can, and there are like some necessity, like pen, pencil, rubber you should have for writing. But I think like one pencil is sufficient, but sometimes these are like my friend is having some designer pencil. So even the basic pencil is okay. So we should make understand kid what is required, what is not required, and it is okay if you go with what is not required. So I think then their expectation at least at early age, unnecessary expectation they can understand. It is not required.
Absolutely, and it is that what do they need, what's necessary, but also
necessity, unnecessity, and not required. They understand and they can differentiate that it is not it is expected, but it's okay if I don't get it.
And that's it. I think setting those boundaries from an early age of what is comfortable for you as a family, and it's just that the communication is there, because they will protest. When they want something they will, but the more consistent we are with our response and approach to it, the quicker they'll understand. But for feeling confident, outgoing and speaking up in a crowd, I think there's a couple of things there, which is my personal opinion in some ways and professional opinion, but I think we place a value on outspoken contributions to a group, but we all have different personalities, and introvert, extrovert. An introvert their characteristics are equally as valuable. They're probably thinking more in depth than maybe somebody who is able to do that very confidently, and I think we have to go with where our children are comfortable as well, because when we listen, we actually learn. We learn from others. So it depends, I think, with this one. If it's that they're so anxious and they're not able to participate in group situations, then this is something you need to focus on. If it's that they're a little bit more reserved, then that's okay. If that's their comfort level and that's part of who they are, and they're not, we all have our individual differences, so to celebrate who they are I think is really important. But if it's something that is a barrier and it's about making them more confident, then we would suggest to first try very small groups with people they're comfortable with, and just give them practice in those situations, because then they'll be able to step out of the comfort zone a little bit more in unfamiliar situations, but they just need more practice in situations where they feel safe, because in bigger environments with lots of different characters, it can be a challenge for some students. But it's okay if they're not as loud as the others, What are you suggesting to push the children these days to study? What helps? What helps them with their studying at home?
Do we need to push the
Well, that's what I thought. Yes. These were my thoughts when I read the question. I think children have been through so much, and just the basic things of being able to interact with their friends and do things they enjoy and have fun. This is all part of learning for them. It's skills that they will develop and need for the future. So it's finding the balance. I think our children are timetabled. They have some pretty big schedules. The thing when I was a child, and the schedules that children have these are, you're busier than me, because they have all the extracurricular and things that they do. So it's finding the balance of, some of the activities they do after school, they're able to switch off, because that's really important. If they're not having those breaks and those opportunities to switch off, actually they're not going to be able to engage with their learning in the same way. So those things are important as well. But it is up to individual people of how far they want to push their children in academic learning, but just noticing, are they happy, are they enjoying it, are they engaging, are they still able to do things they enjoy and mix with their friends as well in activities that they choose. How to raise kids to learn from failures. So we've touched upon this, and I think it is those things, modelling our mistakes and setting our expectations to know that we know they will fail, and if they're not failing, then they're not learning. So having that, this is something that we do in school. We have something called the learning pit, and it's like a visual representation of what happens when you learn, and you go right down into this pit, and it's really hard, and you don't know what to do next, and you're struggling, and then how when you try maybe a different approach, or you ask for help with something, then you come out, but then you've learned from that challenge. So those things are really helpful. And how to raise resilient kids from 3 and 4. Pretty much everything, all the tips we've gone through. And what about children who've already grown up? I mean, how do we become more resilient during our 40s? What do we think? As adults, how do we build our own resilience?
Finding ways to develop yourself, really, and breathing out.
Yeah.
Because sometimes self-awareness.
Yeah. Absolutely. Self-awareness is very important. Also, knowing that we have a support network. This is something I've found in Dubai. People have lived here a different amount of time, but it's very transient. So you may have really good friendships at one point in time, and then people move, and that can make us feel insecure because we've lost those people that have been very important to us. So this is one thing, just in the same way that it applies to children, our own network, and it doesn't have to be a large number of people, but the people that we do have in our lives are those that we can rely on and trust and reach out to. That's really important for ourselves, because sometimes you just need to go and vent. You just need to go and complain. You just need somebody that understands and listens. So that's really important for our own resilience. And how to encourage adaptation to life's changes. I think pretty much everything we've covered really sums that up. I think we have gone through the biggest period of change possible and had to adapt and had to respond. So our children have done that from such a young age, so I think they're equipped to deal with change and transition, and they have shown so much resilience actually in everything that's happened in the world. Some children have experienced some really difficult, really sad situations, had losses in their lives that they've had to cope with. I heard about other people close to them that have had losses, and this has instilled fear into them. So there's so much that they have coped with and responded to, and they have shown and demonstrated a lot of resilience, I feel.
Yeah, maybe for planned change, because you can always plan some changes. For planned change that we've done with my son is when we start planning, because we already know when it's going to happen, we take him on the journey, whether it's weeks or months. Happens, we keep telling him, reminding him that this is day by day. So when it actually happens, he's not shocked. Even he was imagining it in his own mind as well, and starting to think, small things like he is starting in a few weeks, or we're relocating to Dubai. So when it actually happens, he's working with us through the journey. It's not a shock, and his both excitement as well. Whatever anxiety he's feeling, we're able to address and work with it through. We found that it's actually helped us a lot. We've gone through a lot of change in the last, outside of COVID, in the last year or two.
And that's so important. It is so important that they feel involved in that journey and are able to ask questions, because it's that asking questions and that knowing what will happen next that gives us a sense of safety, which is why COVID was so difficult, because we didn't have the answer to those questions of what would happen next and when we would be back at school, and this is where anxiety was high. But the more children are able to ask questions, even if we don't have the answer, the fact that they're able to ask and we can guide them as much as we can will really, really help for any big transitions that are coming up, because we constantly have transitions of, you know, nursery to primary, primary to secondary, even key stage 1 to key stage 2. There's all these things that they're managing, so preparing them for those transitions, it will really help them to deal with it and know what's coming next. So does anybody have any other questions? No? Well, thank you so much for attending our first Mindful Monday. You've been a great crowd, and thank you for your contributions. Okay, so if there is anything